Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Fire me anytime. Post by Fire Me Anytime. Here's the story of how I used malicious compliance to get paid for doing absolutely nothing for a year, while dedicating my efforts to the success of the competitors of the people paying me. This one is exceptionally long, but trust me, it's worth it. The setting: the office of a small plumbing company offering residential and commercial services 6 days per week, plus emergency services after hours and on Sundays. 3 employees that handle dispatching technicians, invoicing, scheduling, parts ordering, etc. We all have the same skill set and cover each other's backs. Take note, we've all technically been hired as dispatchers. Administrative staff like payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and marketing are all done at the head office, which has another 2 locations just like ours. The cast: OP, 30s guy, single, no kids, very flexible schedule. Ashley, late 20s, single mum, raising 3 brats between 5 and 10 years old. Constantly leaving early and missing days due to motherhood duties, doctor appointments, school meetings, etc. Howard, old as dirt, I think he helped Noel build the Ark, has even more elderly parents with dementia, and has an arrangement with his sister. He cares for his parents Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and works Monday through Thursday, not available on the weekend under any circumstances. His sister looks after their parents Monday through Thursday. Howard doesn't need the job, but if he leaves, his sister will offload some of these days to him, and he's having none of that. And finally, Jerk. You'll meet him later. Our schedule: Howard would come in at 6 AM and work until 2:30 PM, Monday through Thursday. Ashley would come in and work 9 AM to 3 PM, Monday through Friday, after getting her kids off to school and leaving early to pick them up. She'd cover the weekends remotely from home. She also came in at 6 AM on Fridays since Howard wasn't in. I would come in at 11 AM and work until 7:30 PM, Monday through Friday, and cover on-call emergencies after hours. My hours had been altered from the 8 AM to 4:30 PM in my contract by verbal mutual agreement. I didn't mind, I like sleeping in. Now to the story. Everything went along fabulously for a few years until Ashley screwed everything up. One of her duties was vetting and submitting timesheets for payroll, and head office noticed that one of the techs was consistently making more than the others. It turned out that Ashley was doing some horizontal dancing with one of the plumbers and was inflating his hours on the payroll. It all came to light when a customer called for a warranty issue on some work that was done, and we could find no record of it in our system. The customer insisted that it was our tech that came out, and the lady on the phone had told them that there was a 20% discount for cash. Emails were sent to the head office, GPS records of the truck were examined, and their little scheme was discovered. She was puffing hours for the plumber, and they were making money on cash side jobs on the weekend. Both were fired for cause, and Ashley was stuck trying to raise 3 kids with no job and no unemployment. So now it's just me and Howard. HR and the owner called us into a meeting and explained that Ashley was no longer employed. We worked out a temporary arrangement for scheduling until a 3rd person could be added to the team. Howard would work his usual Monday through Thursday, staying until 4 PM on Monday and Tuesday. He would also pre-dispatch any late calls, which we would try to avoid. The field officer for the plumbers would take after our calls directly on Monday and Tuesdays. I would work Wednesday to Sunday and come in at 8 AM on Friday and work until my regular close time. I'd pre-dispatch the plumber's first calls on Thursday nights and cover after all calls Wednesday to Sunday. Yikes, so OP was working 8 AM to 7:30 PM, almost a 12-hour shift. We were assured this was a temporary arrangement until a replacement for Ashley could be found. She was let go in May. With only 2 people covering the office, neither Howard nor I could take any time off, as there was no one to cover us. September 1st, enter Jerk. Jerk was brought into the picture to handle administration stuff, which admittedly had gotten a little loose, with only me and Howard covering it. Things like missing POs and parts orders, missing packing slips, reports of revenue and expenses being incomplete, that sort of thing. We were far too busy just trying to keep things running shorthanded to deal with any of this stuff. Howard and I were also told that Jerk would cover the dispatch board if required. Well, he was an absolute jerk. hence the name. He came into the shop, claiming that he'd been brought in to whip us into shape. I couldn't stand him from the beginning. Abrupt, aggressive, and with a vocabulary that used a lot of swear words. Just an all-round jerk. Fine, whatever. Let him handle the outward-facing stuff, dealing with vendors, ordering parts, fleet maintenance, all that stuff. He also handled timesheets for payroll and reporting to the head office. Fine, I'm good with that. And if I have to deal with his BS for a couple of hours 3 days a week, fine. I only worked with him Wednesday to Friday from 11 AM until his departure, around 5 PM. It was endurable. I'd requested time off twice after he arrived and had been denied both times. It's important to note that my contract specified 3 weeks holiday a year, and up until he arrived, I'd only taken 2 days off in the spring. Fast forward to late November. If anything, Jerk had gotten worse. He was really getting under my skin, and had just about had enough. I have a tinsy issue with anger, and it was becoming more and more difficult to rein in my rage and not bite back at him. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. One day I looked at my pay stub and saw that I was short 5 hours. I get paid not only for the hours I'm scheduled, but also for the time I put in covering after our emergency calls. This routinely put me up around 46 to 48 hours per week, with overtime after 44 hours. So these 5 hours I was short were overtime hours. I went to Jerk on the Friday and asked for an explanation. He replied that he'd been directed to bring down overtime, and if I check my email, I'll see a directive that states that under no circumstance is anyone to work any overtime in this office. This was clearly directed at me, and me only, as Howard only put in 36 hours a week and didn't cover on call. So why am I short 5 hours on this pay? I deducted 30 minutes each day for lunch. But I don't take a lunch, I just eat a sandwich at my desk. Doesn't matter, I can take 30 minutes off your pay every day as an unpaid break time. It's the letter of the law. But I actually work these hours. Are you serious? You're deducting time for breaks that I didn't take? It's the letter of the law. If you don't like it, take it up with the Labour Board. I don't have time for this. Get back to your effing desk and do your effing job. Alright, Jerk, now it's on. Piss me off all you like, be a jerk all you like, but F with my money? You're gonna pay. I will F you over. Hard. I have a good friend, Eric, that I've known since high school, who is an associate at one of the better law firms in town. I invited him out for a few beers and some wings on a Sunday night and asked him if his firm handled stuff like this. You know, it's amazing the amount of advice you can get for a few pieces of chicken and some beer. Monday, I drove across town to a store and bought a spy pen. They're pretty easy to get, just Google spy shop for your local city or order one off Amazon. I fiddled around with it and figured out how to get it to work. On Wednesday, I showed up for work at my usual 11 AM start time, and things in the office were business as usual, until 4 PM on the dot. I took my sandwich, a Coke, and a paperback novel, and went and sat in my car. It didn't take long. About 10 minutes after 4, Jerk comes storming into the parking lot and demands to know exactly what the F I'm doing. Taking my lunch break, I replied. The phones are ringing off the hook. Jeff needs to process a credit card payment, and Mike is just about to clear his call. I need you back in there, right now. Sorry, Jerk, but if you're not paying me for my break time, then I'm not working through my break time. Either you handle it, or I'll take care of it in... Checks timer on cell phone, 17 minutes. I then rolled the window back up. It was beautiful. Jerk turned red and stomped back into his office. When I returned, he demanded to know what the hell I thought I was up to. I'm entitled to a 30-minute unpaid break. You took that time off my timesheet, so now I'm actually taking my break. I'm entitled to it. It's the letter of the law. He spluttered, but had no response, so I went back to my desk. 5 minutes later, I get an email instructing me to take my break before 2 PM, so I can be back at my desk before Howard leaves for the day. I replied to his email, BCC copying the owner of the company and HR. I replied that I was unable to do so because, as per labour law, I was not entitled to a lunch break until 5 hours into my shift. Therefore, I would continue to be away from my desk for 30 minutes beginning at 4 PM. I even snipped and posted a paragraph from the Labour Board website to support my position. He came into my office and chewed me out at length. I wouldn't budge. I told him, it's the letter of the law. If you have a problem with it, then take it up with the Labour Board. On Thursday, just after Jerk left for the day, I composed and sent him an email, again BCC copying the owner and HR. I explained that I'd agreed to change my hours on a temporary basis until a third person could be added to the office. I also agreed to continue to work for them until the transition was complete. And now that Jerk is firmly in the groove, I now withdraw my consent to the change of hours as contractually specified, and beginning Monday, would revert to the hours of my contract. Friday, I show up at 11 AM, and Jerk is waiting for me with a printout of the email. HR and the owner have been calling me. What the F is all this about? Simple. When I was hired, my hours were in the contract, Monday to Friday, 8 AM until 4:30 PM. They were changed by verbal agreement. Well, I withdraw my consent and stand by the hours specified in my contract. F that! You work the same hours until I tell you differently. The hours of service in the contract are the letter of the law, contract law. If you want to change the hours, we can always renegotiate the contract. You want to alter the hours? Fine. Then I want to alter my rate of pay. There was a flurry of emails. He would email me, and then I would copy in HR and the owner of my replies, since he wasn't copying them in at all. So I worked Sunday as usual, and then Monday showed up at 8 AM. Howard asked me what the hell was going on, because Jerk was bad-mouthing me all over the place to him and the other techs. One thing you should know is that a good dispatcher in the service industry is a rare thing. There are trucking dispatchers, taxi dispatchers, and tow truck dispatchers, but finding one that knows how to balance plumbers and customers and solve problems is tough. I get along with all my plumbers, and they're asking what's happening. I take the high road and basically reveal nothing. Towards early afternoon, I send Jerk an email explaining that there are some late calls and ask, how late do you need me to work? He replies, until the calls are done. Perfect. So I end up working until 6:30 PM. Same on Tuesday, but 7 PM, Wednesday too. I sent emails both days and Jerk told me to stay both times. He replied to me only, but I sent an okay email reply, copying the bosses. By Thursday morning, I'd racked up 39.5 hours, 38 in the office, and 1.5 hours taking after-hour calls. At about 10 AM, I sent an email, again copying the bigwigs, detailing my hours for the week, explaining that at 12:30 PM, I would have a total of 44 hours. And as per Jerk's directive of such and such a day prohibiting overtime, I was left with no choice but to go home. Just before I hit send, I turned to Howard and said, you might want to go make some popcorn. Jerk comes storming in and demands to know what the F? Well, Jerk, I'm only following your directive. You said no overtime, right? Well, as of 12:30, I'll be on overtime. Unless you say different, I'll have to go. So it's either rescind the no overtime or I head out. Your call. Jerk is now screwed. He's been told to dial back on the overtime, and now he's going to have to pay me overtime for half of Thursday, all of Friday, and all of Saturday. Or cover the dispatch board himself. Work the effing weekend, goddammit! You'll pay for this, you miserable little F! Okay, but I'll need that in writing, and I can't work Sunday. You'll have to. Listen, you little poop. You don't tell me when I have to work. I tell you when you have to work, and you're working Sunday. Nope. Labour law says specifically that I get 1 day off in 7. I can show you. Since I worked last Sunday and I'm working every other day this week, I get this coming Sunday off. It's the letter of the law, Howard. I can't work it, so I guess you'll have to. But my kid has a tournament on Sunday. Can't you bend the rules? Sorry, sir. It's the letter of the law. Jerk was a real treat to be around for Thursday and Friday, I assure you. And my little spy pen recorded every word out of his mouth. Monday, I come in. I think this was the 26th of November, and the owner, HR, and Jerk are waiting for me. The owner and HR want to know what the hell is going on. They're getting reports that I'm being insubordinate and threatening to abandon my job. Jerk wants to can me, but up until 2 weeks ago, I was a model employee. I explained everything. and referred them to the emails that I'd copied them in on. They asked what started this whole mess, and I told them the jerk said he was told to reduce overtime and took time off my check that it actually worked. He demanded that I go back to work on my break, and that I schedule my break 3 hours into my shift. I laid it all out. The owner gave Jerk the stink eye and said, "I never told you to dial back overtime." They asked me if I'd be willing to go back to the hours I was working before. We can discuss it, but since this would be a major change to my employee contract, we'll need to renegotiate it, including my rate of pay. Can you just go back to those hours and then we'll schedule a meeting? No thank you. If I revert to previous hours, then you have no reason to schedule a meeting. We do the meeting first. Then, once we have a deal, you get the hours changed. Let us talk about it, and we'll get back to you. Okay, but you'll need to discuss this soon. I'm taking the last 3 weeks of December as vacation time. Jerk explodes, with the owner and HR right there. You effer! You're not taking any effing vacation without my approval, and I'm not approving a goddamn effing minute of vacation for you. I turned to the owner and HR. By labour law, I'm entitled to vacation time yearly. By contract law, I'm entitled to 3 weeks. So far, I've only taken 2 days this year. I've requested vacation time twice, and Jerk denied it both times. I couldn't take it in between when he fired Ashley and hired Jerk, because there were only 2 of us in the office. I get 3 weeks a year, and we're coming up to the end of the year. Company policy is use them or lose them, so I'm using them. HR says, "We'll pay you out the accrued vacation time." I looked at her and replied, "I don't agree with your offer. I'm entitled to the time. I want the time, not the money." She thinks for a minute and says, "Okay, we'll roll it over into the new year." I don't agree to your offer. I'm entitled to time this year, not next year. Jerk pipes up and says, "But Howard already has 2 weeks booked off, and I'm taking my family to Florida. You can't take the time. There's no one to run the shop." Wait, what? You're going to Florida? So you expect me to run the entire show, alone, work 7 days a week, and you send an email saying no overtime? Are you effing serious? Back to Yona and HR. Look, I had to work a full year before I was entitled to a vacation. All the plumbers have to work a full year before they're entitled to a vacation. Labour law says you have to work a full year before you're entitled to a vacation. And he's telling me that I'm not allowed to take my vacation because he's going to Florida and he's only been here for 3 months? Is that seriously what I'm hearing here? You guys told me to hold off on vacation time until we got a 3rd person. I point at Jerk. Well, there he is, right there, and I'm taking the vacation time I'm entitled to. No payout, no rollover, and if you want to renegotiate my contract, it can wait until the new year. And I stormed out of the office. I don't know what the rest of the meeting was like, but about an hour later, Jerk starts chewing me out again, saying how he's out thousands of dollars, and now he has to tell his kids that they're not going to Disney World. He calls me every name in the book. The next 2 weeks were hell. What a jerk! Calling me names, telling me he won't rest until I'm out of my backside, telling me I'm the worst piece of poop he's ever worked with. So I took my vacation time. Didn't do a damn thing. Didn't travel. Just kicked back and relaxed and spent time with my parents over the holidays. I got back in January and there was a new face sitting at my desk. Jerk was there with a poop-eating grin and my separation papers. HR put laid off rather than fired, so I had that going for me, which was nice. Now, where I live, if someone calls a former employer for a reference, they can't actually say anything negative about you. All they're allowed to say is the time frame you work there and whether or not you're eligible for rehire. So, a few days into January, Jerk gets a phone call. "Hi Jerk, my name is Eric, and we're looking at OP's resume here. He says you were his most recent employer. You're on speaker. What can you tell us about him?" Jerk goes off like a stick of dynamite, calling me every name in the book, saying that I was a horrible worker, lying about missing time, telling all sorts of BS. I let him go on and on. "Hey Jerk, recognize my voice?" He stops his ranting. "Yeah, you effer, I know your voice." Ever heard of the law offices of Huey and Dewey? They're my lawyers, and this call has been placed from their conference room. Nice talking to you, Jerk. The next call we're making is to the owner to get his lawyer's name. It took a while, but a meeting got scheduled with the owner's lawyer, HR, Jerk, me and Eric. Eric explained that I was starting a claim for wrongful dismissal, and that this meeting was to explore the possibility of a settlement. We laid out everything, every email, a timeline of events, and then the piece de resistance. A supercut audio of Jerk yelling, threatening, ranting, and just being an overall jerk. It was beautiful. Jerk went white. The owner stared at him the whole time, like he wanted to erase him from the face of the earth. They asked us to excuse them for a few minutes, so Eric and I went for a coffee and a chuckle. They texted us within 20 minutes to return. The owner's lawyer explained that they were admitting no liability or wrongdoing, but as a gesture of goodwill, they were willing to offer me 3 months severance if I'd sign a waiver. Eric smiled, declined, and then played the tape from the conference room about the reference. He also mentioned that he was present at the time, and so were 2 of his colleagues, and all 3 of them were willing to file affidavits to that effect. Another break. We came back, and they upped the offer to 6 months. We countered with 2 years severance. Eventually, we settled on 15 months, with me to collect a check every 2 weeks, as if I was employed, based on the average of my hours for the past 6 months of my employment. And I had racked up a lot of overtime in those 6 months. They tried to sneak in a clause prohibiting me from working for anyone in the same industry while the deal was in effect, but Eric spotted it and had it struck out. My skill set is in demand, and it didn't take long for me to find another job doing the same thing, but for one of their competitors. It's awesome! These guys pay me on one Friday, and my working job pays me on the next. I'm racking up savings like you wouldn't believe, and Eric was pretty gentle with his billing. And Jerk? He was canned in no time, and between me and the owner's network of contacts, the rumor mill has basically made him untouchable. As far as I know, he's still looking for a job. I told my new employer to burn his resume if they ever got one. But if I ever get a phone call asking me for a reference for Jerk, all I can tell them is that I worked with him for 4 months. I can't say more than that. It's the letter of the law. What a beautiful karmic justice story. I'll never understand how owners will have a great employee who's worked their butt off, always done a great job, and worked around their needs to keep the business afloat. Then they get a new manager who screws around with this good employee, but they fire the long-term good employee over the new manager who's showing they suck at managing? Like, why? It's not like they didn't know what was happening. They were being copied into all the emails. They could have stepped in and done something then, and saved themselves all this hassle. And then OP told them about him messing with his pay, hours, vacation time, and lying about being forced to cut back on overtime. And instead of firing the manager, they just watched as he screamed at their good employee. They could have done something then too. But no, they wait until OP reached his limit, put his foot down and demanded his rights, and then illegally fired him. Even without the expensive lawsuit, they lost a good long-term employee with a rare and essential skill set, just to keep some destructive new manager who couldn't even manage a team of 2 previously unmanaged employees. Where's the logic? This story is so common, but they can't all seriously be this dumb. There's got to be some explanation I'm missing. If you liked this video, please let me know, and subscribe for more juicy tea.